Gates Mills, Ohio, shimmered under the crisp, perfect blue of a Midwest autumn afternoon. The air smelled of wood smoke, expensive lawn care, and the last of the season's roses. This wasn't just a suburb. It was an enclave, a pristine bubble of old money and equestrian prestige, separated from the grit of Cleveland by a winding, tree-lined parkway. Along its main street, immaculate sidewalks were punctuated by boutique shops with price tags as breathtaking as the manicured landscapes. The weather was flawless, as it often was in this golden slice of the year, casting a warm, buttery light on the historic brick facades and slate roofs of the village center. Clara Evans often felt like a smudge of charcoal on that pristine canvas. She was a woman in her late 20s with expressive eyes and hands perpetually stained with paint and graphite. Her worn jeans and faded t-shirt were a stark contrast to the casual elegance that surrounded her. But she walked with a quiet, artistic grace. She was here, in this expensive paradise, for one reason: Kaiser. Kaiser was a magnificent German shepherd, his black and tan coat gleaming in the sun. He wasn't just a dog. He was her shadow, her protector, her 90-pound anchor in a life that often felt adrift. He walked beside her with the calm confidence she lacked. His head was high, ears tuned to the sounds of the village, his gaze constantly checking on her. "Just a quick walk through the park, buddy. Then I have to get back and finish that commission," she whispered, scratching the thick fur behind his ears. Kaiser nudged his head into her hand, his dark, intelligent eyes full of unconditional devotion. The interruption came not as a sound, but as a vibration, a jarring, angry snarl of an engine tearing through the tranquility. A blur of viper green, almost fluorescent. A supercar, low-slung and obnoxiously loud, blew through the four-way stop intersection. Clara instinctively yanked Kaiser close, her heart leaping into her throat. "Heel, Kaiser. Heel." The car, a modified McLaren, swerved. Maybe the driver lost control at that reckless speed. Or maybe it was intentional. It hopped the curb for a split second, its front tire spitting gravel. It happened too fast to process. There was a sickening, heavy thud, a sharp, clipped yelp of agony, and the horrifying sight of Kaiser being thrown violently against a wrought iron fence. Clara screamed, a raw sound that tore from her throat. The green car fishtailed back onto the road. It slowed for a moment, just long enough for the driver to look back. Preston Carmichael III, a young man with a face as smooth and blank as polished marble, glanced in his tinted rearview mirror. He was barely 20, with artificially sun-bleached hair and the bored, indifferent arrogance of someone who had never faced a consequence. He saw Clara frozen in horror, her hand still clutching the empty leash. He saw the dog, a crumpled heap of black and tan on the sidewalk. A small, cruel smirk touched his lips. Then he accelerated. The engine roared triumphantly as the car disappeared toward the highway, leaving only the smell of burnt rubber and Clara's echoing scream. "No, no, no, no." The word was a breath, then a sob. Clara stumbled to Kaiser, her knees hitting the pavement hard. "Kaiser. Oh God, Kaiser, please." He was taking short, shallow breaths, his eyes wide with pain and confusion. But his back leg. She didn't want to look. It was twisted at an unnatural angle. Dark blood was beginning to pool on the pristine sidewalk. "Somebody help. Please, somebody help me," she cried out, her voice thin with panic. Shoppers stared. A few pulled out phones to record, but no one moved. They were frozen spectators to a sudden, ugly reality. From the shade of a bookstore awning, a man detached himself from the small crowd. He moved with a coiled grace that seemed utterly out of place among the leisurely villagers. This was Jax Riley. He was on a rare 48-hour leave from his base in Virginia Beach, and his mind, even when off duty, was programmed for combat, not strolls through quaint towns. He was tall with a lean, powerful build that his simple civilian t-shirt and jeans couldn't hide. His eyes, a deep, steady blue, had already assessed the entire situation. Vehicle, McLaren, modified green, escaping east. Victim, GSD, massive trauma to the hindquarters, probable arterial bleed. Owner, civilian, female, going into shock. "Ma'am." His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through her panic like a razor. Clara looked up, her vision blurred with tears, into the calmest face she had ever seen. "I'm Jax. I can help him. You need to breathe." Jax was already shrugging off the light jacket he was wearing. In one fluid motion, he was kneeling opposite her, his hands moving with a practiced, almost clinical speed. He tore a clean strip from the jacket's inner lining. "This is going to hurt him, but it'll keep him with us," he said, his voice level and reassuring. He expertly applied the strip of fabric as a makeshift tourniquet high above the wound on Kaiser's leg. Kaiser whimpered, a low, guttural sound of pain, but Jax didn't flinch. I need your scarf. The one on your bag. Clara fumbled with the clasp, her fingers numb and useless. He took the bag from her, retrieved the colorful cotton scarf, and used it with the lining strip to create a stabilizing wrap around the injured leg, forming a crude but effective splint. It's a clean break, he said, his voice low. But the bleeding is the problem. We've got that stopped. Now we move. He glanced at his truck, a rugged blue Ford F-150, parked 50 feet away. We don't wait for animal control. I'm carrying him. He's heavy. He'll bite, Clara stammered, the words nonsensical. No, he won't. Jax slid his arms under the dog, supporting his spine and the injured leg with a tenderness that seemed impossible for a man of his obvious strength. Ma'am, open the passenger door of the blue F-150. He gave the order, and her body obeyed before her mind could protest. He laid Kaiser carefully on the seat, using his own balled-up jacket to cushion him. Get in the back. Talk to him. Keep him focused on your voice. The drive to the VCA Emergency Veterinary Hospital was a blur. Jax drove with a fierce precision, weaving through tourist traffic with a focus that was both terrifying and comforting. Clara knelt on the floor in the back, one hand on Kaiser's head, whispering nonsense, her tears dripping onto his soft fur. The moment they burst through the clinic doors, a team took over. GSW? A tech asked, seeing the tourniquet. Vehicle impact. Arterial bleed controlled with a tourniquet. Possible femoral fracture, Jax reported in a clipped, professional tone. Kaiser was whisked away on a gurney. Clara was left standing in the bright, sterile waiting room, her hands shaking, her shirt stained with Kaiser's blood. Jax stood near the door, a silent, solid presence. He hadn't left. He was just there, a calm pillar in her collapsing world. An hour passed. Finally, a vet in blue scrubs came out. She was a woman in her 40s with kind, tired eyes that had seen too much. This was Dr. Hansen. Clara Evans? Yes, that's me. Is he okay? Kaiser is stable, Mr. Riley. She nodded at Jax, acknowledging the life-saving first aid. The work you did on that leg was remarkable. It prevented a catastrophic blood loss. You saved his life. Clara felt a wave of relief so strong her knees buckled. Jax's hand was suddenly on her elbow, holding her steady. But Dr. Hansen continued, her face grave. The damage is extensive. The femur is shattered in 3 places. It's a complex orthopedic surgery requiring multiple pins, and his spleen is bruised. We need to keep him for aggressive monitoring in case it ruptures. Just do whatever it takes, Clara whispered. Whatever he needs. Dr. Hansen exchanged an uncomfortable look with the receptionist. Ms. Evans. That's why I need to speak with you. For the emergency stabilization, X-rays, blood work, and the necessary surgery. We require a deposit. The total estimated cost will be somewhere, she hesitated, hating this part of her job. It's going to be between $12,000 and $14,000. The air was sucked from Clara's lungs. $14, oh. She might as well have said 14 million. She had $700 in her checking account, and her rent was due. I don't. Clara's voice broke. The humiliation of that moment was worse than the panic. I don't have that. I can make payments. I have a commission I'm finishing. I'll get paid next week. Our policy requires payment up front for major surgeries, the receptionist chimed in, her voice flat. We have applications for care credit. Clara shook her head, the tears she had been holding back now spilling over. She sank into a hard plastic chair, burying her face in her hands. It wasn't just a dog. It was Kaiser. It was her family. And she was about to lose him, not just to the accident, but to a rich kid in a green car who thought it was fun to swerve. From his post by the door, Jack Riley watched. He saw her shoulders shake. He heard the choked, broken sobs. He had seen men break in the desert under fire, in the black depths of the ocean. But this was different. This was a quiet, agonizing disintegration. He saw a good person being crushed by a merciless system. And he saw the ghost of a smirking face in a green car. His expression, normally placid, hardened. The decision was made. This was no longer just a random incident. It was a mission. Clara stumbled out the clinic's automatic doors. The number $14, oh echoed in her head like a gunshot. The perfect autumn afternoon assaulted her senses. The air was still warm. The sky was still an offensively cheerful blue. A block away, tourists laughed as they licked ice cream cones. Her world had just ended, but the rest of the world hadn't even paused. She fumbled for her phone, her hands still shaking, still crusted with Kaiser's dark, drying blood. She had one call, one last desperate, humiliating hope. She scrolled to a name, Julian Croft. He was the owner of a small, high-end gallery in a trendy Cleveland neighborhood who, after much convincing, had agreed to consign 2 of her largest paintings. This was Julian Croft, a man of sharp lasers, a perpetually unimpressed expression, and the power to either validate her entire artistic career or dismiss it. He answered on the third ring, his voice abrupt. Croft. Mr. Croft, it's Clara Evans. I'm so sorry to bother you on your cell. Clara, yes. The abstracts. A pause. Is the third piece finished? The buyers I mentioned are coming on Thursday. That's why I'm calling, sir. Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. I'm having an emergency, a terrible accident. My dog, he needs surgery and I need an advance on the commission. Whatever you can spare. 5,000. I'll finish the painting. I swear I'll work all night. The silence on the other end of the line was frigid. Clara, we don't pay for unfinished work. That's not how consignment operates. It's unprofessional. Whatever your personal issues are, you need to handle them. I expect the painting as agreed upon on Thursday. If not, I'll have to give the wall space to another artist. Goodbye. The line went dead. Clara stared at the phone. Unprofessional. The word hit her harder than a slap. She had no one else. No close family. No savings, no safety net, just a dying dog and a bill she could never pay. She slid down the wall of the clinic, pulling her knees to her chest, and finally let the sobs come. Silent, gut-wrenching, hopeless tears for Kaiser, for herself, for the cruel, indifferent world that Preston Carmichael represented. Inside the clinic, Jack Riley had seen her leave. He turned to the receptionist, a woman in her late 50s whose name tag read Brenda. She was already typing, her face a mask of practiced efficiency. The total for the deposit on the surgery, Jack said, his voice quiet but full of authority. Brenda looked up, surprised. Sir, it's 14,000. I'll cover it. Do you take Amex? Brenda's jaw dropped slightly. She glanced toward the empty chair where Clara had been sitting. Are you with her? No, Jack said. He pulled a nondescript black card from his wallet. It was his personal card, where his danger pay and deployment bonuses accumulated, rarely touched. Just run the full amount. He tapped the terminal screen, signing his name in a simple, unreadable scrawl. The machine whirred and spat out a receipt. Paid in full. Dr. Hansen, the vet, had emerged from the back and witnessed the end of the transaction. Her tired eyes widened, first in disbelief, then with a deep, sudden respect. That's incredibly generous, Mr. Riley. Jax nodded, folding the receipt. He was already moving toward the door. His mission here was done. Start the surgery. He's a good dog. Wait, Dr. Hansen said, stopping him. What should I tell her? She's going to be overwhelmed. Jax paused. His entire training screamed against leaving a trail, against personal involvement. Anonymity was armor. But he looked at the door, thinking of the woman sobbing just outside. Just tell her it was a donation from the clinic's emergency fund. We don't have one, Dr. Hansen said simply. Not for this amount. She pointed to a small while you were out message pad on the reception desk. She deserves to know someone helped, even if you don't leave a name. Jax looked at the small pink slip of paper. He picked up the ballpoint pen, his large, calloused hand looking out of place. His writing was stark, angular, all capital letters, the way he wrote mission reports. He thought for a moment, then wrote just 5 words, from a friend of Kaiser's. He placed the note and the receipt on the counter. Give her these. Don't describe me. He was out the door and in his F-150 before Clara, her face blotchy and eyes swollen, found the strength to go back inside. Jax didn't drive back to his family's home. He drove to a quiet overlook facing Lake Erie. The sun was beginning to set, painting the Cleveland skyline in shades of orange and purple. The beauty of the scene was wasted on him. The cold anger that had settled in his chest at the clinic was now a familiar, focused resolve. The smirk, the green car, the casual cruelty. It was a pattern he recognized, the strong preying on the weak. He picked up his phone and made a call. The man who answered was known only as Glitch. He was a special warfare operator first class, a tech genius who could navigate the digital world with the same lethal efficiency Jax navigated the physical one. "You're interrupting my pizza time, buddy," Glitch's voice came over the line, tinny and cheerfully mundane. "This better be good." "Glitch, it's Jax. I need a favor. Off the books." The line went quiet for a second. Glitch's entire tone changed. All humor vanished. "Roger that. What do you need?" Chagrin River Road. Civilian traffic cams. About 40 minutes ago, eastbound. A Viper green McLaren. I need the plate. "You want a license plate? That's it?" Glitch sounded almost disappointed. "Give me 90 seconds. Jax could hear furious typing. "Green McLaren, huh? Somebody hit the lottery." "Just the plate, Glitch." Yeah, got it. Found it. Plate matches a social media post from 10 minutes ago. Kid bragging about beating the bridge traffic. I'm sending you the file." Jax's phone buzzed. He opened the image. It was the driver. Preston Carmichael 3. The photo was a selfie taken from the driver's seat, the iconic bridge in the background, the caption a single, arrogant word, "Conquered." "Carmichael," Jax said, the name tasting like ash. "As in the one and only Carmichael Estates," Glitch confirmed. "Looks like the Prince of Cleveland real estate. Kid's got a record sealed up by daddy's lawyers. Street racing. A couple of DUIs. Nothing's ever stuck. He's untouchable, Jax." "We'll see about that." A cold pause. "I need one more thing. The victim, Clara Evans. I'm sending you her name. I need to know her situation." Quiet as a whisper, Glitch. "Jax, that's getting into creepy territory," Glitch said, a rare note of hesitation in his voice. "She's a civilian caught in the crossfire. I need situational awareness. I don't go in blind. It was SEAL logic. Know your environment." Glitch sighed. "All right, but you owe me 2 pizzas for this, Clara Evans, artist." "Whoa. Okay, she's actually good. Got an online portfolio. Looks like she's struggling, though. Studio apartment in Ohio City. Rent's past due. No local family. Looks like she's completely on her own." "That's what I figured," Jax said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "So," Glitch asked carefully, "what's the play? You gonna go knock on little Preston's door? 'Cause I am not bailing you out." "No. This isn't a brawl. It's an operation. Just keep that info for me." "Thanks, Glitch." Jax ended the call. He looked at Clara's portfolio on his phone. The paintings were beautiful, full of a chaotic energy, deep with blues as churning as the lake itself. He saw talent, and he saw vulnerability. Preston Carmichael was a problem, a tumor. And Jax, he was a surgeon. He decided, sitting in the silence of his truck, that this would not stand. He would not let that smirk win. He would help this woman, this artist he'd never spoken to, get back on her feet, and he would dismantle Preston Carmichael's world quietly, from the shadows. Back at the clinic, Clara approached the counter, her knees weak, ready to beg.
"Dr. Hansen, I don't know what to do, but I can't."
Dr. Hansen came out, her face gentle. "Clara, it's okay. Kaiser is in pre-op. He's getting the surgery." "What? But the money?" "I don't." Dr. Hansen held out the small pink slip and the paid-in-full receipt. Clara took them, her eyes scanning the receipt, her brain unable to process the zero balance. Then she read the note, her finger tracing the sharp, angular letters. "From a friend of Kaiser's." She looked up wildly. "That man, the one who brought us in, Jax. Where is he?" "He's gone, honey," Brenda, the receptionist, said, her voice softer this time. "He just paid and left." Clara stared at the note, a storm of confusion, gratitude, and utter disbelief swirling inside her. She didn't know his last name. She didn't know his face. Not really. But a total stranger had just saved her world. She sank back into the chair, this time not with despair, but with the fragile, terrifying weight of an unearned hope. The cab ride back to her apartment in Ohio City was a numb, surreal haze. Clara sat in the back with Kaiser, who was nearly immobile from anesthesia and medication. His big body, now bulky with a high-tech cast and the humiliating cone of shame, was a dead weight. She had paid the cab driver extra, a gruff man with a surprising gentleness in his eyes, to help her carry Kaiser up the 2 flights of stairs to her small studio. Her apartment was her sanctuary. Unlike the sterile perfection of Gates Mills, it was a space of chaotic creative energy. Canvases leaned against every wall, some taller than she was, others small and intense. The air smelled of oil paint, turpentine, and the dark roast coffee she lived on. It was small, the rent was too high, and the plumbing was questionable, but it was hers. She settled Kaiser onto the nest of blankets she had made, her heart aching. He whimpered softly in his sleep. She sat on the floor beside him, her exhaustion absolute. She pulled the receipt from her pocket, staring at the words paid in full, and the small pink note. From a friend of Kaiser's. "Who are you, Jax?" she whispered to the empty room. She had asked the receptionist, Brenda, if the man had left a last name. Brenda just shook her head. He was very clear, "Honey. Just a friend." A friend? Clara didn't have many, and she certainly didn't have any with a spare $14. She felt a profound, terrifying gratitude, a debt so large she could never possibly repay it. She had just drifted into a restless sleep, her head resting on the edge of Kaiser's blankets, when a loud, insistent knock rattled her door. Kaiser startled, yelping in pain, his eyes wide with alarm. Shh, buddy. It's okay, I'm here," she soothed, scrambling to her feet. She rushed to the door, peering through the peephole. It was Mr. Finch, the building manager. He was a small, fussy man who always looked slightly damp, as if he were perpetually sweating under the pressure of his own minor authority. He was clutching a clipboard to his chest like a shield. She opened the door, her arm instinctively moving to block his view of Kaiser. "Mr. Finch, it's late." "Ms. Evans." He didn't meet her eye. Instead, he looked past her shoulder into the apartment, his gaze landing on Kaiser. His expression, usually just annoyed, sharpened with a predatory focus. "What is that?" "That's my dog, Kaiser. You know Kaiser. He was in an accident." "I know what it is," Finch said, a new edge of confidence in his voice. "It's a violation. Lease agreement, Section 4B, no pets over 50 pounds. That animal is clearly in excess of the limit." "But Mr. Finch, you've known about Kaiser for 2 years, Clara said, her confusion mounting. "You said it was fine as long as he was quiet." "That was then." He tapped the clipboard. "And this is me now, seeing a dangerous animal. He's heavily bandaged. I'm told he was involved in a serious incident." "He was the victim?" Clara cried, her voice rising. "He was hit by a car." "That's not what I hear," Finch said. And for the first time, he looked right at her, his eyes cold. "I hear there was an altercation. The building's owners have been notified. They're extremely strict about liability." "The owners? I've never even met them." "And you won't. Carmichael Estates manages this property, Ms. Evans, and they don't like complications. They don't like dangerous dogs. And frankly, they don't like late rent." Clara's blood ran cold. Carmichael. The name, the green car. This was no coincidence. This was an attack. "They can't," she whispered. "My rent, it's only a few days late. I have the commission." "You have this," he said, shoving a folded piece of paper into her hand. "That's a 3-day notice to cure or quit. You have 72 hours to get rid of the animal. If it's not gone by then, we'll begin eviction proceedings." "Get rid of him?" she repeated, stunned. "He just had surgery. He can't be moved." "I can't." "Cure the violation, Ms. Evans, or you're out. Your choice." He turned and scurried down the hall without a backward glance. Clara closed the door, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't work the lock. She slid to the floor, the paper crinkling in her grip. The hope that had sparked just hours ago was gone, replaced by a cold, suffocating terror. She had just saved her dog, only to lose her home. She was being hunted. Across town, in his truck, parked on a dark, quiet bluff overlooking the lake, Jack Riley listened. "You were right, Jax," Glitch's voice crackled over the secure line. "The landlord thing was deliberate. Warren Carmichael's parent company owns her entire block. They flagged her apartment for immediate review less than an hour after Preston's credit card was used to pay a speeding ticket he got after the hit and run. He's trying to crush her," Jack said, his voice a low growl. The systematic, casual cruelty of it lit a cold fire in his gut. This wasn't just a spoiled kid anymore. This was a family operation. "They're painting her as a negligent owner of an aggressive animal," Glitch continued. "It's a classic slumlord tactic. She'll be buried in legal fees before she ever sees a courtroom." "No, she won't." Jax looked out at the glittering lights of the city below. He was a protector. It wasn't just his job. It was his code. "Glitch, find me the best tenants' rights lawyer in Cleveland. The biggest shark you can find. Someone who isn't afraid of the name Carmichael. Pay the retainer from the op fund. The op fund? Glitch chuckled. You mean your deployment savings? Roger that. And? What about the dog? He's going to need rehab equipment, right? That stuff's expensive. Jax was already on his laptop, logging into a high-end veterinary supply website. I'm on it. Tactical gear for a 4-legged operator. He filled an online cart, a heavy-duty orthopedic bed, a joint supplement Dr. Hansen had recommended, a complex rehabilitation harness, and 20 pounds of premium, high-protein food for sensitive stomachs. He entered Clara's Ohio City address and clicked purchase. Clara sat on the floor for an hour, numb from the eviction notice. Her laptop, sitting on the coffee table, chimed with a new email. She ignored it. It chimed again. Wiping her eyes, she crawled over and opened it. The subject line read Carmichael Estates v. Evans, legal representation. Her heart stopped. She clicked it. Dear Ms. Evans. My name is Marcus Thorne, senior partner at Thorne & Associates. It is my understanding you are in a housing dispute with your landlord regarding your companion animal, who was the recent victim of a severe hit and run. My services have been retained on your behalf to fight this bad faith eviction attempt. Please do not speak with your landlord or any of his associates. Forward me a copy of the notice immediately. We will handle all further correspondence. There is no fee for my services. Sincerely, Marcus Thorne. Clara stared at the screen. Marcus Thorne. She Googled the name. He was the guy. A legal pit bull famous for suing corporate landlords and winning. Retained by whom? She was still trying to process the email when her apartment buzzer shrieked, making her jump. She went to the intercom, her hand trembling. Hello? Delivery for Clara Evans, a cheerful voice called up.
I didn't order anything.
Got 2 big boxes here, ma'am. Says it's K9 medical supplies. Just buzz me in. She did, confused. A minute later, a delivery man wheeled 2 large boxes to her door. She signed for them, dazed, and wrestled them inside. She tore one open. Inside, nestled in packing peanuts, was the most luxurious, high-tech orthopedic dog bed she had ever seen. She opened the second box. It was filled with the exact supplements Dr. Hansen had mentioned, the expensive food, and a complex harness designed to help a large dog walk without putting weight on a back leg. It was thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Taped to the top of the harness was a small, plain white card. She recognized the stark, block letter handwriting instantly. This time it wasn't 5 words. It was just 4. For the recovery. Clara sank to the floor, surrounded by packing peanuts, the eviction notice in one hand and the note in the other. This was real. She was being attacked by a powerful, tangible enemy, and she was being defended by a powerful, invisible friend. The world suddenly felt immense, and she was at the very center of a silent war. She looked at Kaiser, now sleeping peacefully on the bed she didn't buy. Okay, Kaiser, she whispered, a new, fragile thread of determination in her voice. Looks like we have a guardian angel. I guess we fight. Chagrin Falls, 10 miles east of Cleveland, was where the merely wealthy came to gaze upon the truly rich. The Carmichael estate was not a house. It was a compound, a fortress of glass and white limestone perched on a bluff, daring Lake Erie itself. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of late-blooming jasmine and the faint, expensive aroma of cigars. Jack Riley hated this. He hated the suit, a dark Tom Ford his aunt insisted on keeping for him, which felt like a straitjacket. He hated the polite, meaningless chatter. He hated the feeling of a soldier operating deep in a territory that was, in its own way, more hostile than any war zone. Jax, darling, you made it. A woman who commanded the room with the quiet gravity of a minor star glided toward him. This was Carol Vance, his mother's sister. She was in her late 60s, rail-thin with sharp blue eyes, the only feature they shared, and expensive, champagne-colored hair. She was everything he was not, social, political, and perfectly at ease in this rarefied air. Aunt Carol, he said, forcing a smile and accepting her kiss on his cheek. You said it was important. It is, she whispered, her eyes twinkling as she adjusted his lapel. It's important that Warren Carmichael sees that my nephew, who actually serves his country, is attending his ridiculous party. It keeps them humble. Or at least it reminds them I have connections they can't buy. Jack scanned the room. His eyes automatically registered exits, security, private, well-dressed, but soft, and high-value targets. Where is he? Warren is holding court by the bar, as always. Try not to frighten him too much, dear. We still need his donation for the conservatory. She squeezed his hand and then, like a butterfly, she was gone, melting back into the crowd. Jax didn't go to the bar. He took a glass of water from a passing waiter and blended into the architecture. He wasn't a guest. He was a hunter on his own recon mission. He identified his first target. Warren Carmichael was the apex predator of this environment. He was in his late 50s with a perfectly tailored tuxedo, a warm, engaging smile, and the coldest, most calculating eyes Jax had ever seen. He was the kind of man who built empires by crushing the foundations beneath them. Warren wasn't just talking to donors. He was in a quiet corner with a man Jax recognized from his research, Councilman Davis. Davis was a mid-level city politician, slightly overweight, dabbing sweat from his upper lip despite the cool lake breeze. Jax didn't need to hear the words. He was a master of reading nonverbal cues. Warren was smiling, his body language open and friendly. Davis was terrified, his posture subservient, his nods too quick. Warren placed a hand on the councilman's shoulder, a gesture that looked like camaraderie, but from Jax's angle, it was a grip. Pressure was applied, held for 3 seconds, and released. Warren's smile never faltered. Davis looked like he was going to be sick. Blackmail or a threat, Jax noted. This isn't just business, it's control. He filed the information and kept scanning. He found his second target on the sprawling terrace under the glow of minimalist string lights. Preston Carmichael had his own court, but it was a circle of loud, boastful noise. He was surrounded by 3 other young men, all cast from the same mold of inherited wealth and zero accountability. Jax faded into the deep shadows of a large, sculpted maple tree. He leaned against the stone balustrade, looking out at the dark water, appearing like any other guest enjoying the view. He took out his phone, held it at his side, and activated the voice recorder. Seriously, you should have seen it, Preston was saying, his voice high and slurred with champagne. One of his friends, a blank-faced young man with a platinum watch, let out a braying laugh. That green monster, man, did you get it fixed? Fixed? It was just a scratch, Bryce. But the look on that chick's face, priceless. Jax's focus sharpened to a pinpoint. What are you even talking about? Another friend asked. Oh, last week in the village, Preston said, taking a dramatic sip of champagne. I'm cruising down Main Street, just chilling. And this chick, like a total artsy hippie type, a solid 2 out of 10. She just yanks this huge dog right out in front of me. No way, Bryce said, his eyes wide with vicarious excitement. I mean, I could have slammed on the brakes, Preston continued, puffing out his chest. But where's the fun in that? I just clipped him. Just a little love tap from the McLaren. He made a thwack gesture with his hand. That's messed up, Preston, the third friend said, though he was smiling. Messed up? It was hilarious, Preston scoffed. The chick just collapses on the sidewalk, screaming like it's the end of the world. Over a stupid dog. I taught her a lesson about jaywalking. The group erupted in laughter. Jax's thumb found the stop button on his recorder. His face was a cold, neutral mask. He felt no anger, no shock. This was not an emotional response. It was confirmation. It was evidence. He was about to move, to blend back into the party and leave, when he saw Warren Carmichael again. Councilman Davis had returned. Jax ducked into a small alcove shielded by a statue. Warren and Davis were standing near the exit, their conversation brief and tense. Warren was smiling, but the smile was a weapon. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a simple, thick white envelope. It was not a letter. He pressed it into Davis' hand, his grip lingering, his thumb pressing down on the councilman's knuckles. We're all on the same team, Bob. Let's make sure that new waterfront zoning reflects our mutual interests. Davis, pale, took the envelope and slipped it into his pocket with the practiced ease of a man who had done this before. Of course, Warren. Of course, you can count on me. I know I can. Davis scurried away, disappearing into the night. Jax let out a slow, silent breath. This was bigger than a hit and run. It was bigger than an eviction. This was systemic corruption. The son was a cruel fool, but the father was the real enemy. Warren Carmichael was rotting the city from the inside, using his money to buy politicians and bend laws. And he had just confirmed it all. Jax straightened his suit. He had what he came for. He found his Aunt Carol by the massive fireplace, nursing a glass of red wine. Leaving so soon, Jax? You didn't even try the caviar. The bass called, Aunt Carol, he said, his voice dropping into a tone he knew she would recognize. Can't discuss it. Her expression instantly changed from socialite to concerned relative. Oh, All right, dear. Be safe, and thank you for coming. You made that shark Warren Carmichael very nervous tonight. He kept asking me who you were. Good, Jack said, kissing her cheek. Let him wonder. He walked out of the glass fortress, the noise of the party fading behind him. He got into his F-150, the simple, utilitarian truck, a stark contrast to the Bentleys and Ferraris in the valet line. He sat for a moment in the darkness, engine off. He had the son's recording. He was a witness to the father's bribe. This was no longer a mission of charity. It was a campaign to dismantle an enemy network. 3 days later, Clara was beginning to feel a fragile sense of hope. Her lawyer, the formidable Marcus Thorne, had called Mr. Finch, her landlord. The conversation, she imagined, must have been brief and brutal. The eviction notice was rescinded immediately, replaced by a groveling apology about a clerical error. Kaiser was recovering. He was learning to navigate the small apartment on 3 legs, his tail giving a weak thump whenever she praised him. The orthopedic bed and the harness, gifts from her angel, had made the impossible task of caring for him manageable. In response to this vast, anonymous kindness, she knew she had only one path: to work. She was at the Croft Gallery in Cleveland, the very place she had called from in her most desperate moment. She was a part-time assistant, a job that mostly consisted of dusting, polishing, and staying quiet. Julian Croft, the owner, was a tall, thin man who wore severe black turtlenecks, even in the Ohio sun. He viewed art not as an expression, but as an asset, and he treated his gallery like a vault. Clara, he said, not looking up from his computer. The north wall, the abstracts, they're gathering dust. See to it, and the Venetian glass Finch needs to be moved to the front pedestal. We have a potential buyer coming in. Yes, Mr. Croft. Clara got the velvet polishing cloth. The Venetian Finch was a small, exquisite sculpture, less than 6 inches high, carved from a single block of rose quartz by a famous artist. Its value was immense, rumored to be over $30. She handled it like a live bomb, moving it carefully to the front of the gallery. She was dusting the glass on the abstract, one of her own pieces, ironically, when her phone buzzed with a notification. Then it buzzed again, and again. It was a link, sent by 3 different acquaintances, to a local gossip blog, the CLE Insider. Her blood ran cold as she read the headline: Heir apparent, Carmichael's son brags about cruelty. I taught her a lesson. Beneath it was a 30-second audio file. It was muffled, set against the backdrop of a party, but the voice was unmistakable. It was Preston Carmichael. Just yanks this huge dog right out in front of me. I just clipped him. Just a little love tap from the McLaren. The chick just collapses screaming like it's the end of the world. Over a stupid dog. I taught her a lesson about jaywalking. Clara dropped her phone. It clattered on the gallery's polished concrete floor. Clara, what was that noise? Julian snapped. Nothing, Mr. Croft.
I dropped my phone.
I'm sorry. She stared at the screen, her heart hammering. He had admitted it. The whole world knew now. The comment section was a deluge of digital outrage. It was vindication, but it was also terrifying. She was no longer anonymous. She was that chick, the 2 out of 10 whose dog had been run down. Across the country, in a secure communications room on a naval base, Jax and Glitch were watching the blog's metrics. It's going viral, Glitch said, grinning, his face illuminated by 3 monitors. The Insider just blasted it to all platforms. Local news is already sniffing around. You just painted a giant target on that kid's back. That's the objective, Jack said. He was in his uniform, his face expressionless. Phase 1, disrupt the target's sense of security. Yeah, well, Phase 1 is a go. Glitch pulled up another feed. And here's the blowback. Preston's Instagram is melting down. He just deleted his account. And oh, this is good. Daddy's lawyers have already started sending cease and desist letters to the blog, which the Insider is now publishing for everyone's amusement. Good. Rattle the father, corner the son. Just remember, Jax, Glitch said, his voice turning serious. Cornered animals bite back. This kid knows who she is. You just painted a target on her back, too. I know, Jax said, his voice even. I'm her armor. I'll be watching. The fallout was immediate. Preston Carmichael couldn't go anywhere. He was heckled leaving his favorite coffee shop. A valet pointedly refused to park his green McLaren. For the first time in his life, he felt shame. He sat in his father's study, a vast room of dark wood and cold marble, staring at his phone. Warren Carmichael stood over him, not with fatherly concern, but with icy rage. "You are a fool, Preston," Warren said, his voice a low, dangerous thing. "I have spent decades building a name that demands respect, and you, in 30 seconds, have made Carmichael synonymous with animal cruelty. You are a liability. This careless, childish cruelty. It's pathetic. Fix it." "Fix it? How?" Preston yelled, jumping to his feet. "It's everywhere. It's that girl's fault. That artist chick, she must have leaked it. She's trying to ruin me." "I don't care who did it," Warren said, turning away. "I care that my name is attached to it just as I'm closing the waterfront zoning deal. Make this go away. Make the girl go away. And do it quietly. No more public noise." A cold, reptilian smile spread across Preston's face. He knew exactly what to do. The next afternoon, Clara was back at the gallery. Julian had been unusually agitated all day, complaining about the negative press. "It's just bad for the village, bad for business," he had muttered. At 3 p.m., a man walked in. He was young, dressed in an expensive, brand new looking hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. He flashed a bright white smile. It was Bryce, Preston's friend from the party. "Hey," he said, his tone breezy. "I'm looking for art." Julian Croft was on him instantly. "You've come to the right place, sir. Are you interested in abstracts? Sculpture?" "Yeah, sculpture. Something small for my desk. Something that says, 'I've arrived.'" As Julian led him toward the main sculptures, Clara felt a prickle of unease. She recognized him. She had seen that blank face in the comments of the gossip blog, tagged in old photos with Preston. "Mr. Croft," she said, stepping forward. "Not now, Clara," Julian hissed, annoyed at the interruption. He turned back to Bryce. "Now this piece, the Venetian Finch, is a..." "Wow, yeah, that's the one." Bryce looked at it, then at Clara. A flicker of recognition and malice passed through his eyes. "You know what? I need to see how it looks in the light." He picked it up, ignoring the small "do not touch" sign. "Sir, please. That piece is extremely delicate," Clara said, moving toward him. "It's cool. I'm cool," Bryce said. "I'm just..." He stumbled, theatrically, lurching toward Clara, who was standing near the front desk where her bag was stowed. "Whoa, careful," he yelped. In that single, chaotic moment, as he righted himself, his hand, holding the finch, dipped into her open canvas tote bag, which was sitting on the floor by her feet. He dropped the sculpture inside. It was so fast, so smooth, she wasn't even sure it had happened. "Goodness," Julian said, flustered. "Sir, please, allow me." "You know what? This place is too stuffy," Bryce said, suddenly bored. "I'll come back later." He turned and walked out, leaving a heavy silence. Clara stared at her bag, her heart frozen. It couldn't be. Before she could even bend down to look, Julian's phone buzzed. He read the text. He went pale. "What is it, Mr. Croft?" It's an anonymous tip." He looked at her, his eyes narrowing with a sudden, terrible suspicion. "The Venetian Finch. The tip says. It says you were just seen taking it." "What? No. That man who was just in here, he what, Clara? He's gone. But you're here, and your bag is right there. Mr. Croft, I swear to you." "Open the bag, Clara." His voice was iron. "This is a mistake. That man, he's friends with Preston Carmichael. This is a setup. Open the bag." With trembling hands, she bent down and opened her tote. There, nestled next to her wallet, was the glittering rose quartz finch. Julian Croft made a small, strangled sound. "I can't believe it. I gave you a chance. I hung your work on my walls, and this is how you repay me? By stealing?" "No, he put it in there." He stumbled. "He didn't stumble. He's been gone for 2 minutes. I'm calling the police. Clara, this is grand larceny." "Please check the security cameras," she begged, tears of frustration and horror welling up. "Please just check the tape. It will show you." Julian went to the back office. Clara followed, her last shred of hope clinging to the digital footage. He rewound the tape, his hands shaking with anger. They watched the monitor. They saw Bryce walk in. They saw him pick up the finch. They saw him pretend to stumble. And then for exactly 60 seconds, the screen dissolved into a mess of digital noise and pixelation. When the image returned, Bryce was walking out the door and the finch was gone. "The footage is corrupted," Julian whispered, his face ashen. He looked at Clara with pure, Unadulterated contempt. How did you do that? How did you jam the signal? I didn't. I don't know how. This is what I'm telling you. It's a setup. But her words were useless. The proof was in her bag. The video proof was conveniently, perfectly gone. When the two police officers arrived, Clara was sitting on the floor, numb. She offered no resistance as they handcuffed her, her mind unable to process the speed of her own destruction. As they led her out, past the paintings, past her own work, Julian Croft was already on the phone. Yes, this is Croft. I'm calling the tip line for the Cleveland Plain dealer. I have a story for you. That victim from the Carmichael recording, turns out she's a petty thief. Jax was in a decompression chamber on base, pushing his body to a simulated 25,000 feet, when his secure phone buzzed. It was Glitch. Jax ignored it. He was in a state of deep focus, his heart rate steady and controlled in the thin air. The phone buzzed again, this time with a priority 1 text: Clara Evans arrested. Grand larceny. La. Jax hit the emergency depressurization button. The chamber hissed. He was out the door in 10 seconds, ignoring the shouts of the training supervisor. He grabbed the phone. Talk to me. They got her, Jax. Glitch's voice was grim. She's being processed. The plane dealer just posted the article online, La Jolla art thief. They're painting her as the mastermind. They're saying she used the dog story as a distraction. It's bad. Jax was already striding toward the comms room, his jacket slung over his uniform. The footage, Preston's friend. It was wiped, corrupted, just like you predicted, Glitch said. I'm looking at the gallery's server logs now. It was a clean hack. They triggered a local signal jammer, then went in and deleted the file itself. They knew someone would look. They deleted the active file, Glitch, Jax said, his voice almost a whisper. He sat down at a terminal. They didn't delete the shadow copy. Check the automated cloud backup. Check the server's temporary cache. Nobody scrubs a drive clean in 2 minutes. The original file is still there. Find it. On it. For 3 minutes, the only sound was furious, rapid typing. Jax stared at the blank screen, his mind mapping the enemy's moves, their strategy. They had escalated. They had crossed the line from civil harassment to criminal sabotage. This meant the rules of engagement had changed. Got it, Glitch said, his voice suddenly triumphant. Buried deep in a temp folder mislabeled as a system update. Oh, this is crystal clear, Jax. It's perfect. Put it up. The file opened on Jax's monitor. It was the uncorrupted, high-definition tape. They saw Bryce pick up the Finch. They saw him look at Clara, who was busy dusting. They saw him fake the stumble. They saw his hand, clear as day, dip into the canvas toad and drop the quartz statue. The camera then panned back, showing him walking calmly out, right at the moment the public-facing monitor's tape would dissolve into static. He doesn't even look guilty, Glitch said, amazed. What a sociopath. He's a sloppy amateur, Jax corrected. He's just used to a world with no consequences. Send me that file, encrypted, now. Done. What's the play? Send it to the cops? No, Jax said, opening a new window. The police will bury it in evidence. They'll let Carmichael's lawyers tie it up for months. We're not going through the front door. We're blowing up the building. He was typing, accessing a secure, anonymous email client. What are you doing, Jax? The Carmichaels are fighting a reputation war. We're going to use their own weapons against them. Get me everything you have on the Cleveland Plain dealer. The paper, the one that just trashed Clara? They're hungry. They just ran a false story based on a Carmichael tip. When they find out they got played, they'll be furious. I need their top investigative reporter. Not a gossip columnist, a shark. Megan O'Connell, Glitch said almost immediately. They call her Meg. Old school. Hates billionaires, hates corruption, and has a Pulitzer for taking down a state senator in 2019. She's the real deal, and she despises Warren Carmichael. She's been trying to get something on him for years. Perfect, Jax said. He began to compose a message. Megan O'Connell was at her desk, nursing her fourth black coffee and chasing a deadline when the anonymous email hit her secure inbox. She was a woman in her late 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes magnified by reading glasses and an impatient, no-nonsense demeanor. The subject line read the Carmichael package. You're welcome. She snorted. Another crank. She almost deleted it, but the sender's encrypted address gave her pause. She clicked. There were 3 files. Audio_Preston_Champagne_confession. MP3. Video _ gallery _ frame up. MP4. Witness _ statement _ Warren _ Carmichael _ bribe. Text. Meg's heart, she thought, stopped. She clicked the audio file first. She heard the party noise, the champagne, and the vicious, bragging voice. I taught her a lesson. Oh my God, she whispered. She clicked the video file. She saw the setup, the fake stumble, the drop. She cross-referenced the timestamp with the arrest report she had seen on the wire. But it was the third file that made her drop her pen. It was a simple text document. It was a first-person witness statement from the Gates Mills Gala. It detailed with military precision the time, location, and exact conversation as Warren Carmichael passed a white envelope to Councilman Davis. It named the specific zoning plan, the waterfront development, as the subject of the bribe. That was the key. That was the motive. The audio and video were just sideshows. The son's petty cruelty. The text file was the father, the systemic corruption she had been chasing for a decade. The source was anonymous, but the details were too specific to be fake. This wasn't just a story. This was an empire. Meg picked up her phone. Her first call wasn't to her editor. It was to the Cleveland chief of police. David, it's Meg O'Connell. You're going to want to see this. It concerns that art thief you just arrested in Chagrin Falls. And by the way, you were just handed the case of your career. Her second call was to Julian Croft. Clara sat in a cold, concrete holding cell. She had been there for 5 hours. She had been fingerprinted, photographed. Her canvas tote bag, the one she had painted herself, was sitting in an evidence locker. Her life was over. No gallery would ever trust her. No commission would ever come. She was, as the article had proclaimed, a thief. The cell door buzzed and opened. Evans, the officer said, his face stone. Your lawyer's here.
I don't have a lawyer, she stammered.
Marcus Thorne walked into the visiting room, his suit immaculate, his expression calm. Ms. Evans, my apologies for the delay. There was quite a bit of digital paperwork to file. Mr. Thorne, how did you know? The same way I knew about your eviction, he said, opening his briefcase. My client is very thorough. Now, first things first. All charges are being dropped. In fact, they're being dropped right now. What? New evidence has come to light. He turned his laptop around. This is the uncorrupted security footage from the gallery. Clara watched the screen. She saw Bryce. She saw the stumble. She saw the Finch drop into her bag. She burst into tears, this time tears of profound, earth-shaking relief. But how? The who and how are not your concern, Clara, Thorne said, his voice kind but firm. My client's only directive was for you to be cleared. He slid a second paper across the table. That is a formal public apology from Mr. Julian Croft. He's mortified. He's begging you to return to your position at a higher salary, and he's offering you a solo exhibition next month. The cell door buzzed again. This time it was Julian Croft himself, his face pale, looking like he'd been sick. Clara, Ms. Evans, he stammered, wringing his hands as a guard watched.
I was sent the video.
I was played. This is a nightmare. Please say you'll come back. That woman, the reporter, she said you could sue me for everything I have. Clara looked at the man who had called her a petty thief. She looked at the lawyer sent by her invisible guardian. She was free. She was vindicated. I'll think about it, Mr. Croft, she said, her voice shaky but firm. She stood up. The guard opened the door, not to the cell, but to the main hallway. She walked out of the police station, the afternoon sun hitting her face. It felt like the first breath she had taken in days. The war wasn't over, she knew, but her guardian angel, whoever he was, had just called in an airstrike. The last week had been a whirlwind. Clara felt like she had been dropped, dizzy, back onto solid ground. The Cleveland Plain Dealer had run a front-page retraction, followed by a searing investigative piece by Megan O'Connell. The article was titled The Carmichael Machine, and it was shaking the city. Clara's name was cleared. Julian Croft, terrified of both lawsuits and Meg O'Connell, had offered her a solo exhibition, a huge raise, and his most profound, groveling apologies. But today, none of that mattered. Today was about Kaiser. They were in a small, grassy dog park in a quiet neighborhood, shaded by oak trees. It was late afternoon, and the light was soft and golden. Kaiser, strapped into the complex, brilliant rehabilitation harness, was taking his first hesitant steps on the grass. He was clumsy, but he was trying. That's it, buddy, Clara encouraged, her voice gentle. One more step, good boy. She was so focused on him that she didn't notice the man until he was standing a few feet away, just watching them. She looked up, her hands tightening on the harness. Her breath caught. It was him, the man from the clinic. The face she had tried to recall 1,000 times. He looked different than she remembered, less severe, his features softened by the late daylight. He wore simple jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, but he stood with an unnerving stillness. Jax, she said, the name a whisper. He nodded, his blue eyes moving from her to the dog. Jack Riley. Good to see him on his feet. Clara's mind, which had been spinning with questions for a week, suddenly went completely silent. All the pieces clicked into place, forming a picture so large she could barely comprehend it. It was you, she said, her voice trembling. The clinic, the note, this harness, the bed, Marcus Thorne. He works for you. It wasn't a question. Jack saw the storm of emotion in her eyes. Gratitude, confusion, fear. He had decided this morning, on his last day of leave, that she deserved to see a face, not just a ghost. I paid the bill, yes, he said, his voice quiet. And I helped find Mr. Thorne. I saw what happened, Ms. Evans. I'm not good at walking away. But the video, she pressed, taking a step toward him. Preston's audio file, the news story. Megan O'Connell, she. How? This was the line. He had to handle it carefully. I have a friend, he said, which was true. He's very good with computers. He knew where to look. He found the unedited security file. We just made sure it got to the right people. The right people? She repeated, numb. Megan O'Connell. She's the best. Clara stared at him, trying to comprehend the scale of it. This man, this stranger, hadn't just helped her. He had systemically dismantled her enemies. He had deployed lawyers and hackers and investigative journalists like a general moving pieces on a map. Why? She finally asked. The simple question held the weight of the world. You don't know me. You spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. You saved Kaiser. You saved me. Why? Jax looked at Kaiser, who had limped over and was now sniffing his hand. He rested a hand on the dog's head. That driver, Preston Carmichael, I saw his face. He was smiling. The world is full of people like that. I just wanted to see what would happen if, for once, they didn't get to win. How can I ever repay you? She whispered. You don't have to, Jax said, finally meeting her eyes. Just make that solo exhibition a good one. I saw your work online. The world needs to see it. A black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. The door flew open, and Preston Carmichael stormed out. He was not the calm, smirking prince from the McLaren. He was a wreck. His designer clothes were rumpled, his hair was a mess, and his eyes were shot with red from anger and panic. Meg O'Connell's article, which had just dropped, had implicated his father in the bribery scandal. The Carmichael world was on fire. You, he screamed, pointing at Clara. His voice was a raw shriek. You did this. You and that lying reporter, you ruined me. You ruined my father. Clara instinctively backed away, pulling Kaiser behind her. Jax didn't turn. He simply stepped to the side, placing himself directly between Clara and Preston. It was a simple, non-threatening move, but it was a wall. That's enough, Jax said, his voice even. Preston stopped, finally noticing him. He looked Jax up and down with contempt. Who the hell are you? Huh? Are you the guy? A friend of Kaiser's? He laughed, a wild, broken sound. You think you're tough? You think you can hide behind this? This nobody? He was talking to Clara, but his eyes were on Jax. I will ruin him, and then I will ruin you. Preston was lost in his own rage. He lunged, not at Jax, but past him, reaching for Clara. You're going to pay. It was the last mistake he would ever make. It wasn't a fight. It was physics. As Preston's arm came up, Jax parried the clumsy attack, his hand deflecting Preston's wrist. In the same fluid motion, Jax took hold of that wrist, pivoted, and used Preston's own momentum to spin him around. There was a sharp, clean crack as Jax applied an arm bar, sweeping Preston's feet from under him. Preston went down, face first, into the grass. Before the pain could even register, Jax was kneeling on his back, one hand pressing Preston's face into the dirt, the other holding the arm bar at an angle that promised excruciating pain with the slightest movement. It had taken less than 2 seconds. It was silent, brutal, and utterly controlled. Clara stared, hand over her mouth, her mind blank with shock. This wasn't a brawl. This was a neutralization. The man kneeling on her attacker wasn't just a friend. He was something else entirely. "Stay," Jax commanded, his voice low and cold. "Down." Preston tried to struggle, but a slight increase of pressure from Jax sent a bolt of agony through his shoulder and he screamed. That's when the sirens arrived. 2 Cleveland PD cruisers, lights flashing, pulled up to the park. But the first person out of the lead car, right beside the uniformed officers, was Megan "Meg" O'Connell. She wore her press pass on a lanyard and an expression of grim satisfaction. A sharp woman in a detective suit, Maria Flores, was with her. Well, Meg said, taking in the scene. "Looks like my tip paid off." Detective Flores surveyed the scene. Preston pinned, Jax kneeling, Clara and the dog trembling. "What happened here?" "This man," Jax said, indicating Preston, "just assaulted this woman." "He's lying," Preston yelled into the grass. "I'll sue all of you. Do you know who my father is?" "We do, Mr. Carmichael," Detective Flores said, her voice dripping with professional boredom. "That's why we're here. We have a warrant for your arrest. Felony hit and run, felony vandalism, and now it looks like assault and witness intimidation." As the officers cuffed a struggling Preston, Meg O'Connell walked over to Clara. "You okay, kid?" "He just attacked me," Clara stammered. "Figured as much," Meg said. "This morning's article essentially cut him off from his father's money. He's a cornered animal. I had a hunch he'd come looking for you. Called my contact at the department and asked them to be in the area, just in case." Meg looked at Jax, who was now standing, brushing himself off. She noted his military posture, the efficiency of the takedown, and the rehab harness on the dog. She looked at him, and she knew. "You must be the computer friend," she said, a small, sharp smile playing on her lips. Jax met her eyes. "Just a concerned citizen, ma'am. Glad I was here to help." Detective Flores approached him. "I'm going to need your statement, sir." "Of course," Jax said. "I was just passing by, and I saw him attack her." He had receded, becoming an anonymous citizen again. He had revealed himself to Clara, but he would remain a ghost to the world. As the police led Preston away, screaming threats, Clara was left standing with her dog. She watched Jax give his statement, his voice calm, revealing nothing. He had saved her again. He was her angel, but he was an angel with the skills of a warrior. And she realized with a shudder that she was safer than she had ever been in her life. 1 year. 12 months. A single spin of the earth that had managed to unravel decades of corruption. The name Carmichael, once a granite monument to Cleveland's wealth, was now a synonym for disgrace. Megan O'Connell's initial article had been the first tug on a single loose thread. The entire tapestry of Warren Carmichael's empire had unraveled with breathtaking speed. Her months-long investigation exposed a web of bribes and intimidation that reached to the highest levels of city government. Councilman Davis was the first to fall, indicted by a federal grand jury. Warren Carmichael, arrogant to the end, tried to fight, but the evidence was too precise. The witness, the anonymous citizen who had seen the bribe, was too credible. He was now awaiting trial, his assets frozen, his empire in ruins. And Preston, the catalyst, the petty tyrant in the green car, had learned that his father's money could no longer buy him immunity from consequences. His conviction for felony hit and run, compounded by the assault on Clara, had earned him a mandatory 2-year prison sentence. The boy who had smirked as he drove away was now just a number in a state facility. The city, it seemed, could breathe again. Tonight, the Croft Gallery in Cleveland was unrecognizable. The cold, austere space that Julian Croft had once curated like a vault was alive. It was packed with a vibrant, chattering crowd that spilled out onto the sidewalk, the air buzzing with genuine excitement. The entire north wall, once Julian's pride, was gone. In its place, a massive banner hung, Resilience, a solo exhibition by Clara Evans. Clara stood near the entrance, her hands clasped, her heart beating to a rhythm she had never felt before, joy. She wore a simple dark blue dress, her hair was up, and at her feet, regal and serene, was Kaiser. He was fully recovered. A faint silver scar ran down his back leg, and he walked with a slight, noble limp. It was the mark of his history, not a sign of weakness. He was the guest of honor, and he knew it, accepting scratches behind the ears from strangers with a quiet, dignified tolerance. I am speechless, Julian Croft said, hovering nearby. He was a changed man, humbled and clearly astonished. It's all sold, Clara. All of it. That venture capitalist from San Francisco, he bought the triptych, the whole set. He's calling it a masterpiece of narrative trauma. Clara smiled. She looked at the work that had come from her soul. The triptych was the centerpiece. The first painting, Impact, was a canvas of horrifying, chaotic darkness ripped apart by a violent slash of viper green. The second, Isolation, was a small, lonely figure in a dark room threatened by a paper notice. The third, The Guardian, was a massive abstract, a study in shadow and light, a powerful, undefined shape shielding a single, steady flame. Marcus Thorne, her lawyer, raised a glass. To resilience, Clara. And he added with a wink, and to excellent legal representation. From across the room, a familiar sharp voice cut through the noise. Don't forget the press. Meg O'Connell pushed through the crowd, her normally cynical face lit with a rare, genuine smile. You did it, kid, you took all that ugliness and you made it beautiful.
I didn't do it alone, Meg, Clara said, her eyes scanning the doorway for the 10th time that hour.
No, Meg agreed, her gaze softening as she looked at Kaiser. You had a good lawyer and a very, very good dog. And she looked at the painting of the Guardian. You had a friend. At the mention of it, Clara's breath caught. The crowd near the door parted. A man stood there, silhouetted against the night. He wasn't in a suit. He wasn't in a uniform. He was just Jax. He wore the same simple jeans and t-shirt he had worn in the park. His blue F-150 was parked just outside. He looked solid, real, and completely out of place in the art gallery, and she had never been so happy to see anyone in her life. He'd been gone for 6 months. A deployment to a place he couldn't name, doing things he couldn't discuss. Their relationship had been built on encrypted emails, on carefully worded letters, on the shared trust of that violent, clarifying week. He walked toward her. The crowd, sensing the gravity of the moment, seemed to fade into a respectful hush. He stopped in front of her. Kaiser let out a low woof of recognition and thumped his tail, nudging his head against Jax's hand. You came, Clara whispered. I said I wouldn't miss it, Jax said. His eyes were on her face, and in them she saw no hint of the warrior, no ghost of the soldier. She just saw the man who had seen her at her worst and believed in her best. Your work, it's incredible, Clara. It's our story, Jax. He looked at the triptych, at the slash of green, at the protective shadow. He nodded, a small, private smile touching his lips. You got it right. He didn't kiss her. That wasn't their way. Instead, he simply held out his hand. She took it. Their fingers laced together, a quiet, solid connection that was stronger than any public embrace. It was a promise kept. The next evening, the sun was a perfect, hot gold disk sinking into Lake Erie. The air was mild, tasting of salt and peace. They were in Gates Mills. They walked along Main Street, on the same pristine sidewalk where it had all begun. The spot where the green McLaren had swerved was just pavement now, washed clean by a year of sun and gentle lake-effect rain. Kaiser walked between them, his limp almost unnoticeable, his tail held high. He was not a frightened victim. He was a proud companion, walking his 2 favorite people home. Clara, who had once felt like a charcoal smudge on this pristine village, now felt like she belonged. She wasn't a part of its wealth, but she was a part of its resilience. Jax, home from the harsh realities of his world, walked in the easy silence of a man who had found his own peace. His mission was complete. The bad guys hadn't won. It's strange, Clara said, looking at the spot by the iron fence. I used to hate this street. It was where my world fell apart. Jax stopped, looking out toward the water, the historic brick of the village center bathed in the fading light. He squeezed her hand gently. It's not where it fell apart, Clara, he said, his voice low and certain. It's where we began. He looked at her, and she saw their future in his deep, steady blue eyes. It wasn't a future without scars, but it was one they would build together, founded on trust, respect, and the quiet, unshakable strength of a silent vow. They kept walking, leaving the scene of the past behind them, their 3 shadows stretching long in the twilight, heading home.